Eye-opener for September 17th, 2024. Who moves the stock market? How does the stock market continue to go up? When 89% of all stocks are owned by only 12% of the population, how does the Dow Jones continue to climb? I'm starting to believe that Wall Street is like a game of hot potato. In that game, the last person holding the potato is the loser. It's ironic how so many financial advisors and reporters have declared Bitcoin as having no intrinsic value and declared its demise for years now. The irony of which I speak may not be apparent, so I will explain. Bitcoin's intrinsic value is in the following. First off, Bitcoin is inflation-proof. Though its value may fluctuate over the short term, it will continue to increase into the medium and long-term future. This is because there will only ever be 21 million true Bitcoin to ever exist. This cannot be said about the seashells that were once traded as currency on some island. Anyone could go down to the shoreline and become a millionaire in a day or two. This also cannot be said about the tulips that, at the height of this mania, were traded for houses, at least in one instance. This can't even be said about the current currency of reserve for the world, the US dollar, nor any of the fiat currencies that held that same status before the US dollar. The common theme amongst the seashells, tulips and fiat currencies, past and present, is that more of each could either be easily attained by anyone willing to go to the beach, or build a greenhouse on their backyard, or build the printers to run off as much cash as they wanted. By the way, the definition of fiat in this instance is by decree, which means because we said so. Leaders around the world have used mom logic to justify their irrational and irresponsible endless printing of currency to the point it lost and will lose all value eventually. The dollar's decline is imminent, so this leads us to the second metric that makes Bitcoin valuable. While Bitcoin may never be the world's reserve currency, it certainly could be used to back whatever currency replaces the US dollar. Like gold, Bitcoin could serve as the standard guaranteeing the value of whatever paper money your country prints. In the past, the amount of gold your country held backed up any money your country used to settle its debts. Gold allowed two countries or trading partner to know that the value of whatever goods or services they were trading had a value that was known to each. It would be comparable to two people relying on the sun to know the time of day as opposed to relying on two very cheap watches worn by each person. One watch might be a couple minutes ahead and the other watch a few minutes behind, while the sun projects the same shadow for both. So, just as 1 ounce of gold weighs 1 ounce, 1 Bitcoin is worth 1 Bitcoin, no matter where on earth you go. And no matter where you go, Bitcoin is hard to mine, so it's rare like gold. Since this post is not about Bitcoin, however, I will point out one last way in which Bitcoin has intrinsic value before getting back to questioning whether capitalism is the end-all be-all of economic systems. Bitcoin is not centralized. There's no Bitcoin bureau or office that any government can shut down. While countries have placed various bans and restrictions on Bitcoin, these all were done to the detriment of those countries. When China banned the mining of Bitcoin, all of the miners in China moved their operations to other countries. America was a beneficiary of that ban, as miners moved to states like Texas. Let's leave that discussion there for now, and get back to capitalism and what could arguably be the epitome of capitalistic endeavors. Wall Street, where all the really big money circulates. The New York stock market is where all of the biggest companies are evaluated, judged, and deemed worthy or not. This is where the life's blood of capitalism is pumped. Companies are scrutinized based on the profitability and in their ability to enrich those who bet on them. It is Las Vegas for business people. Based on a corporation's financial inflows and outflows, investors either buy or sell shares of a company. They determine the value of a company by looking at how much it costs the company to produce whatever it sells and how many units the company can then sell to consumers. It's all based on the law of supply and demand. If a company has a product in high demand, it will produce a supply of their product that matches the demand for that product. If, however, the demand for their product is low, the company will reduce its supply of the product. If it didn't reduce the supply in the latter case, the company would have shelves of their product that just won't sell. That company would not only have spent a lot of money producing items for which they could not recoup their investment, but they will also be losing money on the cost of storing those unsold units. This happens sometimes, and companies are sometimes forced to drastically mark down the price of items or destroy unsold items altogether due to the drains that storing such unsold items represents. The law of supply and demand sounds like a balancing act that could mean the success or failure of a company, and it is. A company can lose its investors a lot of money if it fails to create an imbalance between expenses and revenues that favors revenue. This is how those who buy and sell stocks determine whether a company is a sound investment. The problem those on Wall Street face today, however, is that few truly know the value of the companies in which they invest. Even giants like Warren Buffett don't know the true value of a company. How could he, when the value of so many companies on the New York Stock Exchange has continued to increase when they sold no more units sold the previous year? You see, in capitalism, a company can only be worth more if either sells more units or lowers its expenses. One way to lower your expenses is to reduce your biggest expense, labor. And when you want to make your company look more profitable heading into a new year, one easy way to do this is to lay off a bunch of workers right before the end of the year. Who cares if it's holiday season? So, Mom or Dad, get laid off after spending so much money on your Christmas presents or whatever presents you get for whatever holiday you celebrate at the end of December. Yeah, capitalism. At least those who invest in your former company are making more money than they'll ever need or use. But wait, are those investors really getting a good deal? When the value of so many companies have continued to go up, despite not producing and selling any more units, how could anyone know the true worth of any company? This is such a predicament that there's a term for a lot of the companies listed on the stock market: zombie company. These are companies that do not or possibly never made a profit. These are companies that are worthless, which in capitalism makes the zombie or living dead. These are companies that give off the appearance of looking like they're alive, but are in fact not. This is one of the effects of capitalism. Another feature of capitalism is that it is a dog-eat-dog system with sayings like, if you're not growing, you're dying. To put it another way, if your company isn't getting bigger and swallowing up your competitors are growing and preparing to swallow you up. This I've seen firsthand, so it's not a myth like the job creator lie. Link below. Capitalism requires that there be absolute winners and absolute losers. I say absolute because unless you are a captain of industry, capitalism requires you to have as little say about the outcomes as they relate to the biggest issues in your life. Capitalism requires that for most of us, almost 25% of our lives be in service to some rich person. Doubt this to be true? Here are the numbers. If you work 40 hours a week, which is 168 hours long, you spend 23.8% of your time at work. That's close to 24%, which is close to 25%. This is 1/4 of your life spent making someone else rich between the ages of 18 and 67. How many good years will you have after 67? Not many don't believe the math. Let's do it together. 40 hours is 23.8% of 168 hours, which is the number of hours in an entire week. Now, multiply 40 times 50 weeks per year. That is if you get 2 weeks of paid vacation. And that's 2,000 hours per year that you work to make someone else rich. Now, one final step. Multiply 2,000 times 49 years, which is the number of years between the ages of 18, when you get out of high school, and 67, when you reach full retirement. If your life follows or followed this pattern, you worked a total of 98,000 hours making someone else rich. Your reward? Sitting at home, paying to watching Golden Girl reruns on some streaming service. In other words, capitalism has led you to paying for a streaming service that is making someone else rich. So you can watch 4 women who made millions pretending to be broke retirees like you. Though we live in a democracy in America, almost a quarter of our lives are dictated by the whims, desires, and passions of others. Under capitalism, you can always quit unless you like food, water, and shelter. Under capitalism, you can speak your mind, unless you want to keep your job, which you don't need unless you like food, water, and shelter. Under capitalism, you don't have to make someone else rich, unless you want to keep your job, which you don't need, unless you like food, water, and shelter. There are other economic systems that don't trend towards monopoly. There are other economic systems that don't require you to be a wage slave. There are other economic systems that more closely reflect the democracy upon which our country was founded. There are other economic systems that I have discussed in the past, and will do so again in the future. You can either keep checking back in here to learn about those other economic systems, or you can buy the book referenced below. In 2018, Chris Osman wrote a book highlighting the problems humanity would face if more power, wealth, and control were funneled to a small group of individuals, groups, or organizations. In that book, Mr. Osman provided solutions from himself and others to the inevitable problems we would all face. In it, he also provided a means for the public to analyze, compare, and contrast the words and deeds of those we've chosen to follow against our real-world experiences. To this end, Mr. Oshman provides the means for readers to disseminate information as provided by their news sources of choice, their elected officials, and any other authorities they choose to follow. The book, titled Solutions Enough Complaining, Let's Fix America, offers a means to hold leaders up, not just to a higher standard than is currently accepted, but to one that will improve lives. Click the link below and get your copy today.